Hi everyone, and welcome to another video from Class 47 Peter. And today's video is going to be a follow-up video of sorts to a 3-part series of videos I did last year, which, if you cast your memories back to the 3-part series called Project Talyllyn, basically I modelled Talyllyn in 009 scale, which you can see the model in front of the camera here. Now, you'll probably remember that I had a little accident with some of the transfers. The transfers that are on this model are made by DTB Models. Now, they recommend you use Johnson's Clear. However, at the time, I didn't have any of that stuff. So instead, I tried to use some Humbrol Gloss Varnish. Now, I have used Humbrol Gloss Varnish in the past on transfers, whether it's building model kits or renumbering locomotives, and it's worked. So as an experiment, I tried it on these transfers, applying it to a few of the transfers. I kind of wish I'd only done it on the one transfer now, but we live and learn. But it didn't work for some reason. Instead, it just left a white mist on the transfers, which was quite annoying, to be honest, and a bit upsetting. I had hoped to go straight to DTB Models and order some new transfers, but they were out of stock, so I had to wait for them to get back into stock. And the transfers are now back in stock, and as soon as I saw that they were back in stock, I didn't hesitate and I ordered a new set of transfers, which they are on their way and they should be here soon. So in this video I'm going to be replacing the temporary paper transfers that are on the model, which they're only going to be there temporarily, basically, until the new transfers arrive to replace those that got ruined. So those are going to be taken off and replaced with the proper transfers. Okay, so first of all we're going to remove these temporary paper transfers, if we can call them transfers. So here's one on the cylinder, which these transfers are not coated with varnish yet. They do need to be. So I have ordered some Johnson's Clear as well to coat the transfers to protect them, so that's what I shall definitely be doing when that arrives as well. So that's that transfer removed, that temporary paper one. So I'm going to put a proper one on there. Some of the paint now annoyingly has peeled off, so we'll have to touch that up, I think. Okay, so the temporary transfers have now all been removed, and I have done some touch-ups as well to the paint in some areas, because upon removing some of them, some of the paint got peeled away. I don't know how that managed to happen, but it did. But I have sorted that out by using some Humbrol 174 Signal Red, which is the paint I've used for this model. I had to go out and buy a new tub of it because I didn't have any left. I had to go out and buy some more anyway for a future project, which I plan to use with that. So some paint had peeled off on the cylinders, which has now been sorted. Also, on this part of the cabby, some paint had peeled off. You can see that the transfer at the back there is missing. That's because I've decided to replace that one because it was all crinkled. So I'm going to put a new one on the back. And also a slight bit of paint had come off there as well on that part of the cab, and that's been touched up. So now it's to add the transfers on. So the transfers have just arrived in the post, as you can see. And these are the red livery lining, because that's the livery that I modelled on this model. And like I said, these have just arrived in the post. And the instructions for these are on the back, as you can see there. So I won't be using all of them, I'll be using this one, which is for the back of the cab, and obviously the ones for the two cab sides, and I will also be using the ones for the cylinders as well. And also that one there, to go on the back of the bunker as well. So not a lot needs to be used on this sheet really. The rest of them will be used as spares, just in case. And also, obviously this little pot of Johnson's Clear, which is the varnish that's recommended for these transfers. And there's also some instructions there telling you how to use it, telling you not to apply thick layers as it may lead to pooling in cracks and corners, and only apply smooth layers. So this will be quite fun to do. Okay, so the transfers have been fitted, most of them have. There's a couple that I've yet to add yet, but I'll do that a bit later. So the transfers I've added, I've first of all added the cylinder lining transfers on the cylinders. There's the one side and there's the other, as you can see. Now I'm using the, I suppose what you could call the larger lining transfers for the cylinders, because the ones I'd used previously were the ones that are to be used, or the ones that are for the cylinders that you get with the Nano Planet Slimline detail kit for this model. But I didn't fit the cylinders from that kit, so I decided to use the lining transfers for the cylinders as they are, which are the larger ones, and they do look nice on this model, I think. They don't look bad. Also I fitted the lining on the cab sides. There's the one side of the cab, as you can see. And then there's the other side. Now the transfers for the rear of the cab I've yet to add on. So the transfer that's to fit on this part of the cab, which is this one just here, I'll add on later on. For the one that's to be fitted at the top part of the rear of the cab, where the rear window portals are, now when I did go to add that transfer on, it tore apart. So what I've had to do is I've had to go back onto the DTB Models website and order another pack of transfers. They're only about £4. It's money I didn't want to have to spend, but to get this model completed, then that's why I've done that. So when that new set of transfers comes, then I'll add that transfer in place. That's when I'll probably add this transfer as well. What I will say with these transfers is you do have to be careful though, because they are quite delicate, because they can tear quite easily. What I find in my experience is if you get a cotton bud and soak it in water and then apply it to the area where you want to put the transfer on and then add the transfer, because what I find is if you don't, because you see with companies like Fox Transfers, as soon as you remove the transfer from the water and apply it on the model, it tends to collect water, but also it means that when you want to position it how you want it to, it moves about much easier. And then all you have to do then is just simply use a cotton bud and just soak up the excess water. But with these transfers, as soon as you've taken them out of the water and applied them on the model, then they stick straight onto the model. And then that's when, trying to position them, that's when they can tear easily. So what I find is, if you get a cotton bud, soak it in water, and then apply it onto the area where you want to put the transfer on the model, then put the transfer on, you can then move the transfer about a bit to position it to how you want, which I find that easier to do. So that's just to watch out for. So what I've got to do next is to apply the varnish, which I'll do that later, because it does recommend in the instructions for the transfers to leave them an hour to dry. In fact, actually I might leave them overnight to dry, actually, to ensure that they've dried properly. So as soon as I've dried, then we'll add the varnish. Okay, so it's been 24 hours and the transfers are now dry. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to apply the transfers using Johnson's Clear. Now, as I said earlier in the video, as I mentioned, from these instructions that you get with this bottle, it tells you to not apply it in thick layers, as this may lead to pooling in cracks and corners. So I will have to be very careful with this. So I'm going to use a brush. I'm going to use this one, but I'm only going to apply a very small amount on the transfers, because the last thing I want is to have it pooling in cracks and corners. Okay, so I'm just going to apply a very small amount, like I say, on my brush. So there we go. So that should be enough, and hopefully it shouldn't pool in anywhere. I mean, there's no cracks in the decals on these, so that shouldn't really cause a problem. But we'll just wait and see how that turns out once the varnish is dried. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to paint the running board. Just to paint it a darker shade of red to the prototype. And I'm going to use the Humble Acrylic 174 for this. Right, so the buffer beams have been painted, and I do think that this is now a much better shade of red for them than how they were previously. And I think it looks more closer now to the prototype, now that they're this colour. So the model has now had all the transfers coated with the Johnson's Clear varnish, and so this model is now finished. It was technically finished even when it had the temporary paper decals on, but it did take a step back, and so I only considered it then to be about 95% finished, whereas now I call the model 100% finished, now that it has all its transfers. So this model has now been properly finished, and I am a very happy man. So I'll just show you the model now. I mean, there are other things that I could do with this model, such as, for example, I could, if I wanted to, add a lamp on either the front or the back of the logo, but that's not something I'm planning to do. But one thing I do plan on doing at some point not just with this model but with my other narrow gauge models as well, is to add crew in the cab, because Bachmann are at some point going to be releasing some narrow gauge figurines, which they were announced in the Bachmann 2019 range, if I remember rightly. It would be nice to see which figures they are. I'd like them to be locomotive crew, because then I could put them in the cab of this model and my other narrow gauge models as well that I have. Because I do think that the Bachmann Skarloey ones will be a bit too big for these models. So that now brings us on to the end of this video. I know it's not being the most spectacular of videos I've done, but it's been nice to do something a little bit different. And I think I did promise as well in the Project Talyllyn series of vids that I was going to do a follow-up video on this. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put in a few shots of the model running on the layout as a little bonus for you. But that's all we've got time for today. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. Do feel free to check out my other videos and subscribe to the channel, and check back soon for more videos. Take care.